Alright, so I just got out of Venom opening night. Don't know if I'll get this up the day after or maybe the day after that, because I might be having some internet problems. Due to a recent move. And I also apologize if I sound a bit nasally. I'm recovering from a cold. But yes, overall consensus on Venom, I thought was good. Good. Like right before I left, my sister said she'd not heard good things about it, but I didn't see anything. There was nothing in it that was overwhelmingly bad to me. Now, granted, I'm most familiar with Venom from the animated Spider-Man series from the 90s, and this movie, of course, takes a very different approach to Venom has ever been taken in the comics, with the origin story not including Spider-Man. So, kind of disassociating it from the comics, I thought it was done fairly well. There are a few issues, such as when it starts out, how the Venom symbiote is sort of a villain, but it grows, and Eddie is the good guy. And sort of over time, Venom grows to like Eddie. And in turn also kind of grows to like Earth, and chooses to stay and stop an invasion. And somewhat for selfish means, but so he's not doesn't turn full good guy, but the only real issue I had with that was there was so much time spent sort of building up to Eddie and the Venom symbiote meeting and merging, that it doesn't really give a lot of time to their relationship developing from sort of, for pardon the pun, but alien and somewhat antagonistic to partners in vandalism, or no, not vandalism, vigilantism. Yeah, pardon me, my nose. But yeah, and then the first, yeah, that isn't to say the first. I'd say probably 2/3 to half of the film. Wait, no, my math is wrong on that. The first 1/3 to half of the film. The initial setup is, yep, I thought it was pretty good. It's fairly decent, sort of creepy alien setup. Excuse me. And then sort of the second half, after Eddie and the Venom meet up, it becomes more of an action movie. Where there's not a lot of time spent on the plot. Uh, Venom does bite off heads. He does bite off people's heads in this. He bites off 3, I think. It's not much, and there's not. Uh, I remember I heard this was shot for an R rating, but then Sony made them push it down to a PG-13 because they want this to potentially be in the main MCU universe. So definitely something you'll notice is that a lot of action scenes and violence where there should be blood, there is no blood at all. Also, that's, it's would definitely be better. I am kind of hoping there is possibly a R-rated or unrated cut that will be released when this hits Blu-ray. Who knows? Maybe petition it or something, and they'll give it to us. Yes, but yeah, other than lack of blood, there wasn't a whole lot in this that I felt would have necessitated an R, or yeah, if there was stuff cut, it wasn't stuff of like super consequence to the film itself. How far I didn't feel that. Maybe it wasn't already, aside from some things, it probably wasn't already lacking. For those who have been hearing rumors that Tom Holland makes an appearance, he does not. Or maybe he does in a photo, or maybe a naming of some kind in a background that I didn't notice. The only current Marvel, well, the only current cameo in it that, aside from a Stan Lee cameo, of course, as is obligatory, he is J. Jonah Jameson's son is in this. This on the beginning opens with the spaceship you've seen in the trailers that crashed, and they pull out astronaut pilot they specifically named Jameson. And so I presume that's as in J. Jonah Jameson's son. I'm not certain if he dies or not. There is, because this is like literally first 10 minutes of the movie before the opening titles, so oh well. I guess I should probably say spoilers, but Jameson does get infected by a symbiote. The symbiote leaves him and goes into someone else, and then that symbiote actually passes on to several whole hosts. And I think it kills off the previous host. I'm not sure though. They never specify it for certain, because a lot of the symbiotes transfer and they'll kill the host. So I'm presuming that means Jameson's dead. But the Venom symbiote does show that it can transfer hosts without killing him. So, but yeah, first appearance by a Jameson in the MCU, air quotes, because this is technically not an official part yet. We'll see what the ruling at Marvel is after this. Yes, and no, there's no sign of J.K. Simmons yet. Here's hoping they bring him back. What was the next thing on my list? I think they do a good job with Eddie Brock in this. He's not like he is in the comics, but this is like a completely different origin than the comics, so it's hard to say if, like, comics Eddie Brock had this story, he would have turned out the same way. Yeah, and then I will say the comedy between him and the Venom symbiote is really good, because one thing I do know is sort of a thing in the comics is that it's usually, whenever there's speech bubbles, it's from Eddie's perspective. Usually the Venom symbiote is silent, in comic format anyway. And I think in the cartoon, the symbiote itself never actually had technically any dialogue. But the comedy was good between them. It does make Eddie a guy you kind of want to see things go right for him, because as I think in the comics he faked a story or forged evidence to create a story, and then was found out, and that's how he loses his job and everything. In this, he's essentially just trying to do the right thing. He's an investigative reporter, or he stumbles across some evidence via his fiance's his laptop up that he was nosing in that he shouldn't have been nosing in, and he brings it up even he brings it up during an interview that was set up that was not supposed to be an investigative interview, which that I mean the entire setup with that kind of involves some business related stuff that actually, given my work experience, is probably something that would happen, and is giving a investigative reporter and her yeah, I am I completely lost my train of thought with that. Not sure where I was going with that. Yeah, basically, essentially they gave him a job he probably shouldn't have been put in charge of. He tries to go after the story to do the right thing, and it makes his entire life fall apart. Then let's see what else happens. Yeah, from there it's pretty straightforward. They do a few creative things with the symbiote that I personally hadn't seen done before, or because usually in the comic or to my knowledge in the comic and in the cartoon adaptation, the symbiote mostly mimicked Spider-Man's powers. Whereas in this they do. One thing I thought was really creative was Eddie's riding his motorcycle being chased by several vans, and the symbiote creates a protective pad on the ground that moves with him as he's sliding on the bike's side, then grabs a lamppost to make a sharp turn around the corner, and I thought that was pretty creative. And I personally hadn't seen that done in any of the incarnations of Venom I'm familiar with. So points for that. And if they do make more, if this is successful enough that they make more movies, I would like to see them perhaps get more creative with the symbiote. Because to that degree, I do like the deviation from the Spider-Man bit, in that they are using it as more than just mimicking Spider-Man's powers. Excuse me, not being able to breathe through my nose makes it very long to go on these. Makes it a bit difficult to go on these long rambles. Yeah, what else? But yeah, kind of. It's not a super complex story. The Life Foundation, is trying to bring symbiotes into human society because their leader, Carlton Drake, again, forgive me. Drake essentially has kind of a, I dare say, almost a god complex, where he thinks he's the savior of humanity, sort of, in a very weird way. He's delusional. Then, then he eventually gains a symbiote, and then Venom has to go and stop him because, as previously stated, he has changed his mind and wants to save the world, kind of because, apparently amongst his own people, air quotes, he's a loser, as he puts it, but here he's much more. So it's kind of selfish reasoning for why he wants to save Earth, but that's, again, I would have liked to see him and Eddie interacting with the world more. Another bit I thought was good was when Eddie gets infected and he's sort of acclimating to the symbiote. he's like constantly hungry and is eating anything he can get his hands on while trying to stop himself from eating people. Well, that leads him to some good comedic moments. And what else? Yeah, back to the main story. Hey, so he and Venom go to stop Drake and the symbiote he's bonded with Riot. It from launching off on a space shuttle. Oh, they fight. No, but not before her Eddie's ex-fiance. He kind of manages to get Eddie into a hospital and into an MIR room. MIR, not MRI. Again, I'm sorry. Hey, this cold is making it a little difficult to talk. Hey, the MIR. Why do I keep saying MIR? MRI. Hey, emits a sound frequency that disrupts the symbiote and separates it from Eddie. But then Eddie gets captured, so we get a short appearance of Lady Venom. And then the Venom symbiote transfers back to Eddie, and that's how we see that the transfer can happen without killing someone. Yeah, then they fight on the spaceship. Venom wins, blows it up, and then briefly gives the appearance that the Venom symbiote died, saving Eddie. But then later it is shown that he is still bonded with Eddie. And it basically ends with them sort of working out the details of being a vigilante. Eddie sort of teaching him how to be a vigilante. And then that's really where it ends. And then there are 2 after credits scenes. The second one at the end of the credits is just an extended clip of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is forwarded by a comic strip saying, "Meanwhile in another dimension." So I guess technically the MCU would wraps all the movie universes, I guess, now. I don't know. We'll see if they actually do anything with that, or if it's just sort of a little joke. But the first mid-credits scene is setting up Carnage with brief introduction to Cletus Cassidy, he who's locked in prison and requested Brock be the one to interview him. Which I'm not sure how I feel due to casting choice. I'm interested to see where they take Carnage in this movie incarnation, which I heard that apparently it's going to be a trilogy. Again, depending on how well this first one goes. But we'll have to see. So Carnage I'm looking forward to, but yeah, they cast Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy. And nothing against Woody Harrelson. Just the other night I watched Solo again, and then I like him as Tobias Beckett, but I'm not sure I'd choose him. I wouldn't choose him as Cletus Cassidy. Here again, I'm most familiar with him from the animated series, and he seemed a bit. I don't know. I want to say he struck me as a little bit younger than Woody Harrelson, and kind of a little more deranged looking. Because in this he has like a large head of red hair, and then He's leaning over, he looks up, and I was like, I know that face. It's like, that's Woody Harrelson. Why did they cast Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy? Yeah, like, again, if you're familiar with the 90s series, Cassidy and that also had like a much higher pitched voice than Harrelson has. So yeah, it's kind of an odd choice. I'm curious if they might recast by the next movie. But yeah, I think that's about it. I might check my notes and then add on to this. But yeah, that's it. I should probably get going because I have work in the morning. So, final thoughts. Would I recommend seeing it? It uh yeah, yeah, I'd probably say. I mean, I wouldn't say full price. Hey, maybe try to catch it during one of the cheaper times of day when. Hey, but I mean, in terms of this weekend, and I'd say, hey, it's worth giving some support for it because I am curious as where they will go with this. Yes, and I'm curious if it will be involved in the MCU. I feel like it. I think Venom has potential all in the MCU. Yeah, I mean, like there wasn't really anything that there wasn't anything in the movie where I was like, ugh. I was like, ugh, or how dare they? Hey, so I mean, if you're interested in seeing it, then I'd say go see it. It's I don't know. I would say it's like the first half is sort of like a sci-fi, almost not quite horror, but there are some horror elements. Ends with a bit of comedy, and then sort of the second half becomes action comedy almost. Also, if that sounds interesting to you, go check it out. But right now, I'm gonna go home and get some sleep and try to get over this cold as quickly as possible. See you around.